Yeah, let's kind of roll into it. We got Scott Dovner on the call. Listen, I'll tell you, and Scott's you can unmute yourself, Scott, and
Yeah.
get prettied up on video so we can see your face. I didn't Scott Dave did not think he was going to get on camera, so had to put a hat on, he said. But I will tell you, I was looking at Scott's numbers and I called Dave and Ryan. And I said, dude, what this guy is tearing it up all of a sudden. Clearly you were at $14,000 this week. And I was like, what's the gig? Cause I knew Scott he's had a really high dollar position that he's been in for a long time. Ryan and Matt are both just machine sales guys. And then Scott's all of a sudden coming on and beating both of them. And so I was like, what's the gig? And come to find out some stuff had changed. And so Scott, that's what we're going to talk about today. Is
Yeah.
we'll kind of go through it real fast. So maybe if you can kind of give a brief rundown real quick of where you were at and then like what's your business been prior to the last few weeks, just kind of what's your background, your history, and your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been focused in healthcare industry for about 15 years and, making really good money, right? Making upwards of anywhere from 250 to 300K a year. And everything was great. You know, really had the drive for sales. Took me a while to get my insurance license after my brothers got on board. Once I got on board, kind of did it on the side, right? Policy here, policy there, and then kind of put it on the back burner for a little bit. I think what I realized, especially these past 2 months, right, is just transitioning over to insurance full time. It's almost the weight of the world off my shoulders. Well, what do I mean by that? So, with every industry, right, there's always trends that are happening, and with healthcare post COVID, right, my book of business got whacked, right? Hospitals weren't buying, uh, health systems weren't buying, reallocating spend elsewhere, no budget. And, at the end of the day, right, it's all about the dollars and cents. Well, unfortunately that affected my pockets. Also micromanagement, right? When the revenue stream isn't coming in, these corporate giants, right? They want to figure out ways how to be able to micromanage you more, right? How can we keep track of these deals a little bit more? And I kind of got this bad taste in my mouth after a few words with one of my managers, and I decided respectfully to part ways and do insurance full time, right? And I think that's really how I came about it, right? Hit the ground running, and yeah,
But I mean, dude, you had a big income to replace though, like a
I
big
did,
income, right?
I did, and you know what? I think in reference to that, right? You can transition from any job, right? As long as you're good at it and you stick to a proven process, you can be good at anything you do, right? Keep it simple, follow a sales process, right? Quality and quantity. Coming off to these individuals, not as salesy, right? But more of a consultative approach, right? And, that comes with numbers. It's a numbers game, right? Hey,
Yeah.
14,000 this week, great. Next week it's it could be half that, but as long as the numbers are there and you have a strategy, you have a business plan in place on where you want to get to, how many dials you want to get to before lunchtime, how many appointments you're setting in the day, and keep track of that stuff, right? Because it's setting own personal goals, right? So I think using that same process that I've had in the healthcare industry and transitioning into a company like Equus, it's paid off.
So the question is, okay, so obviously, and I'm digging in. How really, because I think there's more people in your position right now in the universe, if you will, that are starting to see some trend down cuts and budgets and commissions or compensation starting to decrease. Was that something you saw subtly taking place, or did you see it more rapidly in your industry?
Again, going back to post-COVID, right? Pre-COVID,
I was about to say during COVID, you were probably lights out. I mean, they were probably buying stuff like wildfire, right?
yeah, yeah. Pre-COVID, on top of the world, awesome, and then after a couple of years of inconsistently hitting your number, right? When quotas are going up, micromanagement is becoming more and more part of the business ethics of the workplace, right? It's the way you manage it. It affects the way you manage your business, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
And hey, I took a risk, right? I took a risk by moving over from one industry, focusing on solely another, right? But again, I was never doing this full time up until the past few months, right?
Yeah.
Really hitting the ground running within the past month. And I'm starting to get good at it. I'm starting to build rhythm and, hitting all my call points, being able to do a discovery call to create pain whenever that client's ready to have an objection, right? How do I overcome that and respond to that in the sense where I'm not coming off as combative, but more consultative, right? So I think, again, just using that method, that sales methodology, and remaining consistent. What was it, Saturday? I had 5 appointments Saturday, and 4 out of 5 were no-goes. And hey, it is what it is, right? You're not going to get those home runs every time, right? But if you stick to that process, it will come, right? The numbers will be there. So yeah, that's nothing special, what I'm doing.
Well,
Anybody can.
it's not special, but you're keeping it simple,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Just simple. When you were, so if I could dig back just a couple months before, like months ago, when you were doing more part-time, which
Mhm.
I love it. I love people starting off part-time. I think it's great because it just gives you it gives you a less stressful way to kind of input in. And obviously, listen, I was not like that personally. I was more had to jump feet first as quick as possible into it. But were there any kind of pain points or challenges that you kind of identified when you were first getting started selling with us, doing the insurance gig that you think, well, like I learned this, it was super helpful, anything like that?
Yeah, to not take every call personally, right? You got to have thick skin. I mean, I right off the bat, I was getting happy ears, right? Oh yeah, absolutely. I'll call you right back, or hey, call me a little bit later, and then that individual wouldn't answer the phone, right? And then I'd be like, oh man, I was banking on that. That was going to be, X amount of dollars, right? And then I kind of circled back and said, well, what could I have done differently, right? How could I have handled that differently and bring them one step closer to close as opposed to just getting a call back, right? So, I mean, yeah, again, nothing special,
Just don't
just
take it personally. Like,
don't take
don't
it.
like,
Yeah, don't take it personally. You know, make the investment of buying the leads because it's going to pay off 10x plus, right? I mean, you're investing in your business, right? And hey, you want to spend $25 on 5 A1 leads and then figure out, hey, nobody answered the phone, I'm all set with this. It's not going to work out, right?
so you're not saying don't just bank on $25 worth of leads is what you're saying.
No, no.
You'd be amazed how many people do that.
Oh,
Well, I'll test them out.
and I think that was one of my big issues. I started off doing that a couple of years ago, right? Buying a lead here, a lead there. I'm like, oh, geez, a lead, $60. I'm like, all right, I'll get 2. And it just, there was no happy medium, right? There was no consistency for growth whatsoever.
You make
And
my heart feel good when you say that, because I have to deal with that so often. When you're like,
yeah,
"Hey, I bought 2," and I'm like, "Ah, that's like the worst investment is like buying 2, right?"
if you think about it, especially for the new goers, right? People spend. I'm gonna be transparent with you. And my brother's probably shaking his head. Why would he say that?
No, don't just tell us the truth. I'm all
When I
about the
got
truth.
all right, when I got my insurance license, you know how many times it took me to take the test to pass? Eight times. Okay.
Hey, you beat me. I was 4, so hey, dude, we're good. We're all
eight
good.
ti- 8 times. I was almost ready to give up. Right. And like my brother Matt was absolutely amazed when I told him I passed the 8th time. And I was like, Jesus, kept getting 69, 70, and then after I did that, you think about how much time you spend, right, getting your license, the training, getting licensed with the carriers. Why not spend the extra dollars to purchase these leads, right? And implement what you've been training for the past 2, 3, 4 months, right? It's almost like you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're going halfway. You're getting your license. You're getting the training. You're getting licensed with the carriers. You're spending all these fees on non-resident licenses, and then you don't buy leads. It's like you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink, right?
Well,
So
what I think is interesting, Scott, is you were just telling everybody about like your transitions of what you did. Like you were working for the medical company, you were making significant money, but then there was a lot of bureaucracy coming down from above. You were getting micromanaged, you were getting quotas put on you. And so what I always think is very curious, right? So I'm like, I just think it's curious is people will trust that system, right? A system that is inherently flawed because, right, your income has steadily decreased because of quotas, agendas, and honestly, just the top level trying to cut your commissions to save money and make more bottom line profits. They'll trust that facility of a business.
Yeah.
But yet the only facility we have here to trust is ourselves, right? Like you go,
exactly.
and listen, I had to get the license. I'm going to buy the leads. I'm going to make the phone calls. I'm going to run the appointments. I'm going to close the sales. Like you are a single machine that you only have to, like you just have to wake up every morning and trust Scott. That's all you got to trust, right?
Yeah.
But yet people will trust that whole facility of an agenda of an employer. And then at the end of the day, you know what happens is that employer craps on them and lays them off or does something that's going to just destroy their income. And you're like, I don't get it. I've never understood that concept of like, hey, I'll trust somebody else to run my world, but I won't trust myself to go out and put a standing lead order together, to make phone calls, I'll tell you, Scott, that's one of the, I don't know if you've met those young guys that go into Dave's office. If you've never have, you should definitely go in there and check them out there. I mean, cause you and I, like you're a young guy, you're in your mid 30s. I'm in my low 40s. I'm looking like if I would have gotten this industry at 20 years old and trusted myself like I did, imagine what my business would have looked like when I hit 40. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But you just got to trust yourself. That's all you're saying. Like you're just saying, I just got to trust myself. I don't know. Like I got to trust myself to get up, make dials, run appointments, book them, call the leads, do all the stuff. Is there anything that you think on a weekly basis that really helped? I mean, listen, you have 14,000 this week, I think 11,000 the week before and 14,000 the week before that. I mean, so you're doing really well, obviously covering right now. Is there anything that you like, do you mind? And listen, if you mind, you don't have to share, but do you mind because Christian was talking about how much he's spending on leads right now. Can you tell us how much you're investing into those?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I purchase any and all types of leads, right?
Sure.
They can range anywhere from 500 to a couple grand a week, right?
Just depends. Just depends what you need. Yeah.
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 Depends.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I think that's what Christian said. Christian said he drops $2,000 a week and his minimum is $10,000 in sales. But this week, I think he wrote 20,000 off of those leads.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great, but he'll tell you, he'd be the first person to tell you, Scott, that like if he buys 2,000 worth of leads this week, he ain't gonna write 20 again, probably. So it's just kind of goes up and down with, but it's consistency that kind of keeps him steady. You know what I mean?
Right.
Nice. Well, dude, congratulations again. I appreciate you jumping on. I think there's, I'm sitting there going, hey, hopefully, Scott, you kind of attack, like if you haven't started building your agency yet, maybe you should attack the healthcare world since you know so much about it. And there's probably a lot more people like you that might be in a similar position. So congratulations though. You really, I mean, you've turned it on. Listen, when I saw your numbers, I know both your brothers, I had no doubt that like, it's just a family tradition that you guys just kill everybody in selling. So that's kind of runs with the Dovner name, but, congratulations again, man. We appreciate you getting on call and sharing with us kind of how your transition's going with everything.
Yeah. Happy to be on, happy to share. Anybody wants to reach out offline. But yeah, Thanks again, Jerry.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And if Dave was smart, he'll take you up on maybe trying to convince you if he can buy you dinner to get into his office to teach some of those people how to close $14,000 into sell in a week. So he should buy you dinner and golf.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Buy me a round of golf. Call it even.
I think that's a hey, I'll buy the round of golf if you get them in and start teaching people how to write 14,000. So thanks again, Scott. Hey, to everybody else on the call, remember, I mean, Scott said it this week. Christian Pounder said it. You're seeing a consistent flow. We're going to keep getting these people on these calls talking about how to consistently run their business, make big sales, but you'll see a similarity in trends going on where they're going out there, they're doing their steady dialing, they're booking their appointments steadily every single week. They're buying a significant amount of leads to cover. Listen, this is a numbers game. It's all about dollars and cents and numbers. It's very simple. But again, this goes back to like, you got to learn. Listen, if there's anything that you leave this call with today, let me give you one major tip and underline this and write it on paper. You need to trust yourself. You need to trust yourself that you'll provide for yourself. I was watching, I'll leave you with this. I was watching this interview. It was a podcast, a video podcast, and they were talking to a doctor, and it was talking about how to better take care of yourself. And when the doctor said, "Hey, listen, what you need to find out," right? He was talking about like when you take a shower, like at the end of your shower, crank your shower water on cold and let cold water hit you for 60 seconds. And what you'll end up finding out is your body wants to immediately dive out of that cold water because it's in fight or flight mode. And what he said basically what your body is built to tolerate a lot of stuff. And that's how it regenerates itself, right? It regenerates itself under severe stress. But one of the things that you got to learn is you got to learn not to run scared and act like you're going to die every time. You have to learn to trust yourself. Like that's the thing. Scott trusts himself. He's not going to run scared and act like he's going to die just because he has to go out and get a standing lead or buy leads weekly, make dials. You got to learn to crank that water down to cold and stand in there and fight the urge to run. And that's where it's really going to help you out in this business is trust yourself, trust your abilities. You are amazing. You have to understand that, but you're going to have to trust yourself to go out there and set your standing lead orders up, run your business weekly, and trust that you'll survive if you go out there and trust yourself. So again, Scott, thank you so much for getting on the call. Congratulations to everybody who went out there last week, knocked it out of the park. A lot of big time producers coming out of it. We appreciate you guys.